Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factslowrio, the long-awaited third episode which should hopefully be coming out right on time. And yes, this has been running for quite some time now. Some people may not even remember the beginning of it or even the previous episode, but that is part of the purpose of this series. So this is Factslowrio, and this is a series that only happens once per year. It's for the people that have a slower rate of video watching. I know that my upload rate can be sporadic and very often there can be very large gaps, and so I feel like my channel more caters to the sort of person that watches things at a much slower pace, much more intermittently, and so this is the epitome of that. This is to cater to those who really don't have very much spare time at all to watch Factorio stuff. But we'll get back to that because immediately what we've come across here is quite the crisis. You see, last time I did an episode on this, we were in 0.14.22, I believe. We're now in 0.16.36, and a lot has happened in that time, and one of the things that has happened is that how steam engines work has changed. So boilers have changed in size, and we've dealt with this sort of issue before in previous saves and stuff when when 0.15 came along. The boilers changed size, and so I just modified the power systems wherever I needed to, but those were always series that were much further along in terms of power, and often had like solar panels and stuff like that as well. Back then, nuclear wasn't a thing, but there was always usually some other backup power systems, so there wasn't a complete crisis. But in this case, that's what we're completely relying on, those old boiler designs, and so for a time, all of the power shut down. I didn't even realize it at first. I started trying to get the science production running, and then suddenly I realized that all the power was gone. So very quickly, I've modified our steam engine column to the newer design, the proper one that fits the new type of boiler. The good thing is that this will save on boiler construction. We'll only need the one, and we can get 2 steam engines on that without any problem. And so that'll give us a bit of room to expand our power. But yes, now that that crisis is over, we can calm down a bit, we can fix this mess of belts that we made here, and start looking at gathering more materials, and maybe getting some more science and some more automation going and things like that. So as you may have noticed, things are running quite slow here, and that's because I was experimenting with a different rate of Factorio videos. Because, you know, I've done normal speed before, and I've done triple speed, and I've done quadruple speed, but this is a series where I experiment with going in the other direction to most of the series I do, and this one is in 1/3 speed. And so what this means is that we really have the time to focus on what is going on, and to consider everything, and really take in what is happening. Because, you know, when it's fast, it is good. It means that you can get through a lot in a particular episode, like 3 times as much if you're going at triple speed, but you lose the ability to appreciate everything that's going on. You're only seeing the overall picture and not all the little details of the construction of a factory, and so this is taking it in the other direction and going even slower than the factory building itself, so that you can really think about what is going on. And so this is how it's been going, and you know, so to keep with that theme, it's also a very slow upload rate. It is precisely once per year on a particular day of the year. Makes it very memorable, and the interesting thing about it is that this is the only series, I think, where I have kept to the schedule, and so people are actually able to rely on episodes coming out. Many people have been saying that they've been looking forward to this third episode coming out on this day, and so it's quite a departure from what I usually do. I'm usually a lot less reliable. And this is one way in which I'm avoiding that, by going at a slower pace that I'm able to keep up with, and also making episodes that are easier to make. Normally, it would take a lot longer to make a triple speed episode because of how much gameplay you need to get 20 minutes of footage, whereas in this case, it's only 6 minutes and 40 seconds. I went a little bit over this time. That is a running theme in all of my stuff, really. I always end up running over the time that I established, so this is more like 7 minutes, I think, pretty much. I was accounting to a certain extent for the time spent in like the science menu and stuff like that. As we get into doing more science, got to consider that more. That's got to not count towards the game clock, just the length of the videos, and so you get a little bit more there of like all the time that I spend looking at science is basically extra time in the episodes, and I spend a lot of time, of course, because everything is at the 1/3 speed. But anyway, I've spent far too much time talking about the episode structure, and And it's a good job that this is at the speed it is, so that we haven't missed too much. But yes, I am working in this particular episode on getting my production square running, which is my favourite way of getting some basic assembling running at the start of a game. So I've got my 4 assemblers in a square. One makes copper wire, one makes circuits, one makes gears, and one makes red science. And that's just a little bit of production of a couple of useful components that I can make use of. We have the assemblers in place, but we still need everything else, and for that I've hopped over to the mining area for iron, and I'm just refueling all of the miners a bit, and gathering some more iron plates so I can do more crafting. We've got some crafts going at the moment, making very good use of the time. Got to try and keep the crafting running nice and often. Don't want to waste any of that time, because time is very precious in this series, and more than in any other I have to think about the time constraints I'm faced with. I only have 6 minutes and 40 seconds a year of game time, and if I want to get anywhere in the game, I've got to make sure that I'm using that time wisely, that I'm getting things done quickly. So getting the fueling done here, and we're crafting some belts. Seems like a good thing to have. We're going to need some belts to run the iron over to the assembly square, and of course also from the copper and things like that. So we've got to take that into account. In the future, way down the line, probably a couple of episodes time, we want to be looking at getting like coal delivered over to these miners and stuff like that to automate the coal fueling, because, you know, that was a lot of time spent there. That's time that I could really use working on other things. So we make our way back over to the production square, and we'll make a little bit of progress on actually setting that up. We can get a belt running through the middle and start thinking about like inserters and stuff that we have running into the assemblers, and exactly what each assembler is doing. And this sort of thing is where you really see the thought processes. So of course I've got the red science, and that's what the square's been built around, and of course the gears have to line up with the red science packs. But then with this one, it can be either way around, and so initially I choose copper wire because I'm thinking like step 1 and then step 2 going left to right. But then I think actually maybe there's a better way of doing this, because the intermediate products are gears and circuits. We probably want those lined up with each other, so I actually go and flip it around, and I switch that one to circuits, so now it's that way around. And that's the thing, if we were watching at a much faster rate, you wouldn't have even noticed that I'd done that. It would have happened too quickly. And so you can see that the thought process is going on. Like the design for the production square is not a completely set thing. I do change it a little bit with each time that I make it, and do it in slightly different ways depending on what the situation calls for. I like doing this little square of inserters in the middle here. It means that you can cover it with 2 power poles, or 1 if you use an underground pipe, but you're unlikely, not an underground pipe, an underground belt, of course. But that's unlikely to happen at this stage. I don't believe we have them unlocked. We are researching logistics right now, though, and very soon we will have that ready. That's all off of science packs that I crafted myself, and that's a demonstration there of good use of time with science packs. I spent the time crafting those so that the science lab could be running this whole time while I'm setting on the setting up the production of more of the science packs so that we can get that automated. So we get the 2 power poles in place, and I start thinking about outputs and stuff as well, where I'm going to unload the circuits and the gears so that we have some chests full of those that I can just grab off of if I need them. And that'll help speed up my personal crafting, which can help as well. At the moment, though, we aren't doing any crafting, and that's perhaps an oversight on my part. I'm sure there's something I could be doing with that crafting time, and at the moment it's being wasted. For example, we only have the 1 wooden chest right now. I need a second one if I'm going to be unloading gears and circuits. Now at this point, what goes through my head is the fact that we are very low on our wood supply. We've spawned in a desert and there aren't many trees around, so that's something we have to consider. So I've decided that I'm going to skip on the having the 2 inserters here leading from the step 1 production to the step 2 production. I'm instead just going to do 2 long-armed inserters that can just jump the gap straight away, and hopefully that will be fine. That'll save us on having to have chests. I mean, we could have just had stuff on the ground, but it seemed like a waste to have 2 small inserters where 1 larger one would suffice. So we get the chest in place, and we've built a second one, but I believe that leaves us with maybe no wood, or very little, at least. And that's a problem, because the next thing we want to do is start getting our materials delivered in. The production square is now pretty much ready to go. I have forgotten, however, to put an inserter outputting from the red science production into the science labs. I will have to remember that later. But apart from that, it's ready, except for the actual supply of materials. And you see there, that is the problem. I'm trying to rush here. I'm trying to get things done fast, and I slipped and ended up placing a bunch of belts I didn't mean to, and that lost me some time there. So, you know, that's that's a bit of a problem. We've got to work on that dexterity, keeping an eye on proper mouse use. Again, the sort of slip up that you just don't notice when the episodes are going at a higher speed. So we've got a couple of belts here. Not much to go off yet, but it can get a couple of the furnaces feeding onto the line, and we can get some production running. And I start looking for a good spot to find some trees, because of course I want to find the nearest spot that has a few in it. And you can see there, did you see those biters? There were biters on the map, moving north. I didn't spot them because I wasn't paying enough attention. And that is going to cost me, because of course I'm running away from the base now. And right now, those biters are making their way north up to my factory. I wasn't expecting the attacks to happen this soon, but if you actually look back at when I was looking at the map, the pollution is really quite far. And that's the problem with spawning in a desert, is that the pollution has spread very rapidly and very quickly reached the biter bases. I've left all the settings normal, and so the biters are relatively close. You can see there's a lot of bases there absorbing pollution, and now I've spotted the alarm is going off. So I only gathered like 1 or 2 trees there, and already I'm having to make my way back to the base. And in the meantime, they are wreaking havoc. They are doing damage, and that is a significant concern for this series. I was definitely not expecting it this soon. A couple of people were thinking like episode 5 maybe we'd be getting the attacks, but you know, we're not even 20 minutes of game time in yet, and already the biters are attacking. It's a little bit of a concern. And you can see there goes the alarm. All the sounds in quite slow motion here. And yeah, while we attack these, worth mentioning that things have changed again since the last time I did one of these episodes. And that was one of the things that I was excited about when I started the series, that every time a new episode comes out, so much new stuff will have happened. So, you know, there have been 2 major updates for Factorio. They've gone all the way through experimental to stable, and in fact that's been very much like a stable thing so far. In the first episode we were in the stable version of 0.12, and then in the second episode the stable version of 0.14, and now here we are in the stable version of 0.16. So it turns out that actually the Factorio developers are far more consistent than perhaps I gave them credit for. I always imagined that a lot of their updates were very variable in how much of a gap there was between them depending on the content, but it seems that ultimately they all balance out in the end, and you end up with a pretty steady rate of 2 updates per year. One prediction I did make in last episode was that by now we would be in the full release, but that did get pushed back. It is, however, scheduled for this summer, so we are very close now to the expected time. Usually by now the devs would have rescheduled it again, but they haven't yet, and it seems like they're very much dedicated this time to completing it. So it does seem like episode 4 will be in the full release of Factorio, and we'll see if anything might have changed by that time. But it would seem like it's less likely. If the full version is coming out, then all the major feature changes are done. We'll not have any more surprises in terms of like major changes to stuff like the boilers changing or the maps changing. It will be interesting to see how the map looks in future episodes where we might start to explore or get more radars in place, because having gone through 4 different, well, technically 5 different versions of Factorio, many of them with changes to the maps, it's definitely going to have an effect on things. Also, I believe in the previous episode we didn't have the new science system yet. We were still in the system where there were only 4 kinds of science pack, possibly. So hard to say now. It's easy to lose track of when exactly different things happen, but I think that's the case, and so we're now facing a bit more of a challenge in terms of science than we were before. And so, you know, everything is moving and changing as we go. And of course, I am changing as well. And so is my recording setup and stuff like that. I've got new editing software now that I'm using that I've had to work out how to set this up in. And stuff like that. I still have the microphone that I had last time. But at the time that of last episode, I think I'd only just got it pretty much. And now it's I've had it for a while. And I have added a pop filter, as I indicated was likely in the previous episode, that I would at least add that. Maybe an arm to put it on as well. Haven't got that far, but it is something I'm considering at the moment. I've managed to get by fairly okay without one so far, but it's always a helpful thing to have. And so yeah, everything is changing from one episode to the next, and it's interesting to look back and see the progress over time. And I look forward to seeing how things are in next year's episode and the year after that, and however long it goes on for. I intend for this series to continue as long as the channel does. But yes, back to what we're doing. So we dealt with the biters, we replaced the 2 burner mining drills they destroyed, and we made some repair packs so that we could undo some of the other damage that they'd done. Very time consuming, especially considering we were away from the base at the time. We've had to now go back out to the same forest and chop down trees again. So that's a lot of time used up there, and that's a bit of a danger because that sort of thing could start to snowball. More biter attacks could happen, causing more distractions, meaning less time dedicated to setting up things like biter defenses. I have chosen the next research to be turrets, because it definitely seems like that is something we urgently need right now. So turret research is going to be underway shortly. We're making the science packs right now, and we're going to bring these back to the lab and get those being used, as well as trying to set up the actual science production. And that will mean that we can just leave the research to sort itself out. Of course, once all the other stuff is set up, the copper supply and the iron supply, and we can focus on setting up defenses and stuff for a while, which we'll definitely need to focus on in next episode, I think. So I start running power poles up to these iron miners here so that we can get the iron being delivered onto the belt, making use of the intention being to make use of the wood that we gathered, but at the moment I'm still crafting a lot of science packs, and that's wasting valuable time. Really, I should stop that, put the packs that I have into the lab, and focus on getting the power poles made. I decide to wait a little bit of time to have more science packs built, and in the meantime I use some of my materials, put them into the assemblers, and I am getting some automated science production set up there. I have got the red science pack assembler running. The mistake I've made is I've not yet put the science packs that I'm crafting into the lab. It's not doing anything right now. It's just wasting its time, and that is a definite oversight by me, trying to think about too many things at once there, I think. Gather some copper there, and I think I nearly forgot about the copper for a while. It's the first time this episode that I've gathered it. I think there was 99 in one of them, so nearly wasting valuable smeltery time there as well. Though, if they were to shut down, it would reduce the pollution rate and help with the biter situation. But of course I might need to make up for lost time later, in which case it will only be worse in the long term. I hop over and grab some more coal and get the copper furnaces refueled. Not too hard to do because they're so close to the coal supply, so that's nice. One of the challenges I've got to face here is how far away that iron deposit is. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's very nearby, but considering the time constraints we're under, how quickly we're trying to do things, it's a real time-consuming thing to walk over there and get anything done. Potentially I could add some belts in that can speed me up on my way there, and I could use the belt supplying the production square to boost back as well. That might shave a little bit of time off, but ultimately there's not that much we can do about that sort of delay. But anyway, we've nearly got the science packs done now, which is perhaps not the best way of going about it, but we'll at least have a solid supply of them going forward. I checked the power situation. I can see that we're getting very close to using all the power we're supplying, so it seems like it is time to make a new steam engine. So I will get that selected, get that in the crafting queue. It's not too high a priority right now, but we'll want to have that ready maybe by the end of the episode to place it down before we're done. That way we've got plenty of capacity to expand our power usage in the coming episodes. So checking up on the lab, we'll dump the remaining science packs that we have into there, and we're now working on crafting the power poles, and that's a very quick process, even in slow motion. So they're ready well in time for us to run over to the iron and supply them. However, as we get there, the biters arrive. Once again, we are being attacked, a bigger attack than the other one already, and all I have right now to hand is a pistol to attack them, so that's a little bit of a concern. There's the alarm going off, a little bit more ominous when it's in a slower speed. And for a moment I'm a little bit concerned about how difficult it is to deal with these biters, but we very quickly start to work through the numbers and get them sorted. Only one miner actually goes down, but we've got serious damage to a furnace and considerable damage to a second miner, so we definitely need to do something about that. But of course we've got to think about our priorities here. We've got to think about keeping things quick, so I decide to focus first on getting the iron supply running for the production square. So we'll put down another power pole in front of these three here. That means that we can get these three furnaces unloading onto the belt and we can get things moving. We still need a copper supply, but that is closer, so that's not going to take too much work to set up. And our copper supply isn't quite as urgent as the iron one. There are more things that iron uses in the early game. There goes the first autosave of the game at the 20-minute mark. So it does seem that we've got a little bit extra there overall in the episode. But yeah, that marks the very first 20-minute period, I suppose. And yeah, I hadn't considered that we haven't had an autosave yet in this. Of course, manual saves are happening more frequently than autosaves, and so we don't necessarily need to have them on. But it's a nice way of just checking the time, because otherwise you have to like pause and save and check the time to know how long the game's been running. But that's a good indicator of the 20-minute mark. I wonder if I even registered that it happened in the episode. I definitely didn't register that it was the main thing, but unfortunately this is all we have time for today. I think pretty much we are out of time with that 20-minute mark, and we haven't got the production square up, and that was what I was aiming for today, so we're behind schedule. So hoping to get that done, but we'll definitely have it done by next episode and get some science underway. We can work on defense against the biters. But that is all we have time for this day and this year, and so with that I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.